Pamus. I'm the Prime Minister. My gender pronouns is he.
My name is Stefania. I'm the Deputy Prime Minister. Gender pronoun preference is she.
E-boy.
My name is Demas. I'm going to be LO and I'm a he. Thank you.
The other OO.
My name is Eko Fakhri. SDLO. The preferred he, him.
CG. Nggak jelas.
Hello, my name is Cindy and I'm the member of government, and you can refer to me as she. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cherry. I'm the government whip, and my preferred gender is a she.
Thanks. Nurse of the Feather, CO.
Hello, my name is Lenny, and I'm the member of opposition. My preferred gender pronouns is she, her.
Hi, I'm Gio. I will be the whip speaker of the closing opposition. I don't have any preferred gender pronouns.
Cool. Just for reference, my name is Sandy. No preference. Just.
Okay, my name is Jessica. Prefer pronoun she or her.
Astrid.
First of all, sorry lagi ada dangdutan. Second of all, hi. Tahu nih dekat kelas gue. Nah, second of all, my name is Astrid. I don't really care about gender pronouns. Just call me Diva. Kidding.
Ooh. Felix.
Felix, prefer gender pronoun he or they.
And lastly, Felicia.
Hi, my name is Felicia, and my preferred gender pronoun is a she.
Cool. Just a reminder, this session is going to be live on Facebook, just to clarify and inform you guys. Right, so without further ado, I call upon the Prime Minister to start the speech. Here. Yay!
Check. I'm audible. By the way, I have a barrier on connection, so I thought, is it okay to not displaying the video?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's better if we all shut down the video, just like. Biar dia ngaruh nggak sih? Okay, cool. Yeah, go on.
Okay. Wait, I'm opening my timer. Ladies and gentlemen, in places like a high crime rate area, we believe that the crime that exists, the crime that exists is very structural. I mean, like this all, even like it becomes a culture, or even like it becomes the main sources of that region to gain profits, or gain money, or whatever is that. The motive of they gaining economy or gaining an advantage is no more for because of they are hungry and could not go for it, but because of they want to acquire money with the greed and with unjustified means by conducting a crime to begin with. So we think that we need to reduce these motives in itself by giving a more retribution policy instead of the rehabilitations and criminal sentencing. In the several models where I'm going to proceed in my arguments. Number one, we're more than willing to, what definitions by retribution is that we're more than willing to emphasize more on the degree of the punishment. Like example, like producing a strictly regulation that could give a high rate of sentences toward the people that conduct a crime, ladies and gentlemen. But not to mention a preemptive. We're going to still treat them humanly in jail to begin with, but with a longer period in jail. So that's why they are still afraid. So that the debate whether or not there will be torture or not in the jail is not relevant to begin with. But lastly, we're not going to do nothing to create people awareness. We're still like conducting more job training, socializations on enhancing educations, but this is outside the jail, because this debate is specifically talks about criminal sentencing. So whether or not we're going to punish this criminal for a longer time or not, the debate outside the jail in the sentencing should not be relevant in this debate. So number one, on the principle first, I'm going to try to explain to you why it's principally is justified and morally okay to give retributions as a criminal sentencing means to begin with, ladies and gentlemen. Number one, we need to characterize first what happened in a high crime rates area to begin with. Like what I've told you before, the problems in a high rate crimes area is that the region that is inhabited with the crimes, there is, like example, like the crimes like drug dealer or even like the usage of child trafficking or whatsoever. These types of crime require us to actually creating a more deterrence to begin with, ladies and gentlemen. Even like the characterizations in the areas is that they are already very in culture about how gaining such profits by using that kind of crimes or whatsoever is that, ladies and gentlemen. We think that their motive is no longer because of their hungry or whatsoever is that, ladies and gentlemen. So we think that in the high crime rate area in itself, more likely it becomes becomes a culture or very structural that we could not easily change them by simply rehabilitations in jail or short-term period of jail or whatsoever is that, ladies and gentlemen. But lastly, we believe that the ideas of the retribution is inherently justified because why? It's giving closure to at least to our victims of the criminal to begin with, ladies and gentlemen. No, thank you, later. So because why? The essence of the criminal sentences is that to give you at least the feeling of justice, or at least to give a closure toward the victim. This is inherently something that is good. Because why? Imagine like the parents that become their child that become a human trafficked or whatever is that, or perhaps the violence, the society that is inhabited with the violence that makes someone's body could not be normal as usual, that the harm is irreversible or whatsoever is that, ladies and gentlemen. We think that those people are very vulnerable and need a closure for a justice to begin with, ladies and gentlemen. What happened in comparisons when they don't feel the justice, when they don't feel the closure? Of course, that there will be us creating a cycle of crime because they will try to seeking more justice outside of the law enforcement or whatsoever is that they're trying to justify revenge by having a violence toward other people. So whatsoever is that. So we think that this principle is very matter for individuals that become the victims of this crime to begin with, ladies and gentlemen. So we think that retribution is inherently something that is okay to begin with. Now, next on the clarification, next of all is that on the principle that if opposition start to explain that the reasons why they are having a crime because of they thief something because they are hungry or whatsoever is that because they live they born with a poor arbitrary or whatsoever is that we think that arbitrariness is not something that is relevant to begin with, because what differentiates human or even like with animal or whatever is that when we have a chance to actually being a good people toward others people to begin with, ladies and gentlemen, we have an options, we have a consciousness, we have an awareness for choosing not to trafficking a child or not to damaging millennials by imposing drugs or whatever is that, ladies and gentlemen. We have a consciousness to think that what the impacts of what we did is harming other people or not, ladies and gentlemen. So we think that it's not irrelevant. It's irrelevant if the opposition try to use the argument of arbitrariness or whatever is that, ladies and gentlemen. Lastly, what's happened? Why it's effectively reducing the crime on the high crime rates area to begin with? Because we need to take notice that in our side, retributions is that inherently is very effective on creating deterrence effect to begin with, ladies and gentlemen. Why is that so? Because when spending more time in jail creating them think twice, ladies and gentlemen, because spending more time in the jail, it means that they could not searching money for more. For example, they could not funding their family, their mother, or even or their wife or their kids, because they're spending their time in jail because they could not looking for money. Because in current status quo, the motives of them are being greed is that economics motive to begin with, ladies and gentlemen. Meaning that it's very cultural, that their mindset is that how I should go out from jail as soon as possible, so that's why I could acquire more, conducting more crime or whatever is that. By using a deterrence effect, we believe that this become the motive of them to change, ladies and gentlemen, become the motive of them for not doing the crime to begin with, ladies and gentlemen. But the comparatively is that what happened in rehabilitations is that there are even if they are educated inside of the jail or having a short-term period of in the jail itself, we think that it's ineffective, because what happened in rehabilitation is that, like example, like it's only about how religion educations or seminar or perhaps personal psychiatrist or whatsoever is that. We think that it's ineffective because, like what I've characterized before, the types of crime that this individual live in that areas is more likely is that the cases like very cultural, like a region that is used to live with the drug dealing or whatsoever is that, or maybe that entertaining area that used to human trafficking or child trafficking or whatsoever is that, ladies and gentlemen. So we think that it's much more effectively if we try to impose more strictly regulations, because it reduces the motive of them trying to conducting the crime itself. We prove to you that it principally justified and effectively reducing the crimes we're proud to propose.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for that speech. To open the case of oppositions, I call upon the law firm. Here.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Clear ya, Kak? Okay. Oh yeah, timer, sorry. Three, two, one. I think basically what coming from the opening governments, basically they try to give us offer, right? That if we are having more retribution, if we are having, they're having longer things so in jail, it's going to be justified for them. It's like, there is going to be lower crimes because their reasoning is because they don't really want to have like that kind of times in there, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I think also they also give us status quo that this kind of place itself is a place for people who honestly just searching for money more, for example. It's not a place that is very poor, for example. I think this is also mischaracterizations coming from the opening government. I think exactly because there is a high crime rate, it's because there is a structural right. It's exactly attacking everybody's on the society. And I think that also the main things that coming from the opening government is the idea of justice, right? I think that if we won't have justice, I think exactly at the current status quo right now, there is no justice right now, right? There is no exactly that people are being treated like poorly. For example, there is structural violence. Maybe that white people having like very huge gaps with this kind of black people, for example. This is exactly what happens when there is a very high rate crimes and there is created a slum, because they cannot make it into the place that is more better, or there is a very huge gaps of like wage, for example. That is exactly the reasons why they cannot they need to do crime, ladies and gentlemen. And exactly because of structural reasons, you're saying that these people doesn't really want to come to jail because they're the father or something. Exactly, this is the reason why, because structure need them for only father to searching for money, for example. This is exactly so bad is because that when you're taking them more long sentences into the jail, exactly that fathers cannot find money. But the fact that you are ignoring that it is a very long retribution, it means that you are honestly really ignoring the people who are in the ground. There is not going to be people who are able to have money. The reasons why there is also high rate crimes is because there is no distribution of money, right? Exactly, you let them to kill people, ladies and gentlemen. So our here from the opening oppositions offer you to mechanism to make sure that it is going to, we are going to have we're going to prioritize rehabilitations of retributions in the terms that we're going to just make sure that the retributions is not going to be that long, which means they're able to come back into the society and make sure they're being fixed in the mindset and make sure that they're able to back contribute into right way, for example, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's the exactly reasons why we need to have these motions. If we need to have reformations for this place, right? Exactly this place is that toxic. Exactly this place have this kind of high rate of like drug dealer. Exactly the reasons we need to be able to reform this place. That all people from this kind of places having the same job, which is to steal or to create to do something crimes, right? Which means they're most basically in that kind of world, all people are going to jail, ladies and gentlemen. All people are going to most necessarily going to the place. First of all, we don't have this kind of money. For example, if you would like to let people all, it's going to be so much cost to be paid, ladies and gentlemen. Moreover, there is going to be children who being killed because they're not being fed, for example. So I think exactly principally from that, coming from that, exactly we need to make sure that we are going to lower the retributions as much as possible, and we're going to rehabilitate, make sure that everybody who are must be leader, someone who are able to affect their family because they're fathers, or moreover they're the one who are honestly having high having a high change of doing bad things. Make sure their mindset is being different. I think that the only comparative coming from the opening government is that they're saying that the education will happen in the offset. Right? First of all, there is no justification from them because it's first, is it going to be kewajiban? Everyone should go to there. There is uncertainty. While in our side, we make sure to catch those other people, make sure that they're being treated fine, that we're make sure that our investment coming so fast and they can go out fast, they're being fixed, and make sure they can back to contribute into society again. So I think that from that we're going to comes, right? I think the idea from them is that they're able to pay fine, right? They're going to pay something, go back to us family, because they're going to give justices for everyone. I think first the idea of justice, this place itself is already not justice for them. So I think exactly we need to make sure that this place is having justice. Second, the idea of they saying that money is there, money is not there, ladies and gentlemen. There's reasons why they're doing crime, ladies and gentlemen. Exactly, we need to change this kind of structures by make sure that everybody's are able to contribute. We're giving them rehabilitation, changing in the mindset, and make sure that they are able to know what they think, what they can do. There is a lot of alternative because in our current status quo there is no offer of alternative. And currently everybody is too dangerous even to come into a place because there is high rate crimes, ladies and gentlemen. So we need to make sure that we are holding people who are having high rate crimes in the end of the day. We're going to talk about the second argument. What is the impact, ladies and gentlemen? If there is no one who's going to contribute back into society, currently right now there is no economy. There is no economy who's going to run in this kind of growth, ladies and gentlemen. Exactly, this is going to be dangerous because exactly there is going to be more crimes happen, ladies and gentlemen. Because even if you were able to go out fast from the place, you still have the mindset that you are doesn't have money. For example, your money is being used for fine. Exactly, that's the reason why they cannot even borders, even though they're having, like, for example, they're giving, no, I don't accept any buy. But exactly the reasons why they are saying that from the opening government there is going to be like job, something like that. It's not going to work, ladies and gentlemen, because high rate crime is still comparatively better because everybody still think that way. That's in everybody still that way. That I already proved to you that it's uncertain for them to want to change, for example, even though there is a job contributions. What will happen in that side? They're going to likely better going to jail, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because in jail they minimal have the minimum, like for example, they have food, they're being treated humanly. Exactly, they're going to be better doing crimes and then being in jail because life is easier in there. For example, you don't have food in current status quo, ladies and gentlemen. I think this reason exists is proof to you that we are better comparatively in their side, because in their side they're giving you an opportunity for them. Yeah, you know, better everybody go to jail because they're having food like that. They're being that exactly because of this kind of reason. People in the ground doesn't necessarily have money and they really rather to have a long life there. It is not going to be great investment because of what we have limited capacity, right? We need to make sure that we're able to restructure this as government, make sure that everybody's are getting as fast as possible. For example, 2 years of rehabilitations. I think that in the rest of the house there is no necessary parameters on how can long is retributions. Is it going to be like all life, for example? This is going to be more dangerous because in the rest of the house, when you're killing people, you're going to be killed, and everybody's and so if you have responsibility of family, for example, you're not going to be able to feed them, for example, and and so on and so stuff, and the crime itself is not being done. So I think exactly because of structural violence is the reasons why here we need to do reformation, and reformations only happen when we oblige people to make sure that they are being changed. Exactly, this is the reasons why we need to use rehabilitation more comparatively to retribution. I think because of this reason, that the impacts of the future, the impacts of people that will happen in the jail is exactly the reasons why you need to go to opposition. So we're proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you, Ardov. Up to extend the case of government, I call upon Deputy Prime Minister. Here.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Three, two, one. Ladies and gentlemen, what we believe here is a criminal justice system that can bring not only just trying to stopping crimes or preventing crimes, but also to bring a fairness, a justice towards those kind of people that got affected by the as a victim, or even to those people that actually do the crimes or like the criminals, ladies and gentlemen. Before I'm coming to my speeches, I will rebut some of the opening opposition's point. First of all, the opening opposition have really explained to you what's actually happening in their rehabilitation system. Their proposal is that they will try to rehab this kind of people by getting them in a place where they can try to fix their economic problems, they can get an education and etc. in their society. However, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to prove to you that their argument and their proposal is not is going to be more costful rather than ours. Right? They told you that that the retribution system is much costful because then people will go to jail. We think that it is not true, ladies and gentlemen, because firstly, when you're trying to rehabilitating this kind of people, it means that you have to like rent, you have to like some kind like rent those kind of expensive psychiatrists to all those people in the communities, ladies and gentlemen, even if they do not do the crimes, ladies and gentlemen. And then also when they're trying to investing, the government investing money to this community so that they will not do crime, it's going to be more costful because there's no exact guarantee that their mindset will get changed and that they will try to not do crimes later in the future, ladies and gentlemen. Probably yes, for the short period of time they might think that, oh, we are already living a good life now, but then later, ladies and gentlemen, because the crime itself is a structural crime, they will try to do those crime again, like drugs, like drinking excessively, ladies and gentlemen. And then secondly, when they're trying to tell you that the economic motive should be the one that we have to take care for this kind of criminals and their family, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that it is not true, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because firstly, in our side of this house, there's not only just retribution system, but there's also another mechanism that will try to take care of their family. Probably the father will go to jail because the father has been drinking excessively. The father only also do like domestic violence toward the kids, toward the mothers, which makes the family will be more harmful if they will just let the father will be in rehabilitation, ladies and gentlemen. Exactly why when we put the father in the retribution, as the government will try to take care of the father, but also to the family. Like there's another mechanism, like probably like KPAI or even like those kind of things that the organization, several organizations that can help the family, ladies and gentlemen. And then thirdly, when the OO tell you that people will likely go into jail, it is not true, ladies and gentlemen, because let me explain you step by step. Firstly, when you're going to jail or a prison, your freedom, very first life will be limited, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot go anywhere. You cannot meet your family directly. Only just like by only you probably can call, but you cannot call them like anytime, ladies and gentlemen. These kind of things that can create a deterrent effect, ladies and gentlemen. Even if they can eat freely in the prison, but their themselves, their human nature to be free will be limited, and those kind of things will make them afraid to like going to do crime again and again, ladies and gentlemen. And then secondly, to the society side or the externalities factors, ladies and gentlemen, it is very effective for putting this kind of people to the retribution to create a perspective of scariness towards the society, ladies and gentlemen. Because when people know, like a lot of people around them, some people around them are going to jail, they will be scared because they will realize that they have to take their actions responsibly, because then people will not just like taking those kind of crimes easily, because going to prison means your freedom will be limited. However, on the comparisons of the opening opposition, going to the rehabilitation will create a perspective that it is not a big deal, ladies and gentlemen, to the crime, that it is okay to like pickpocketing or doing a theft, ladies and gentlemen, because after you're being rehabilitated for like several times in the community, then you can just go out and you can be free again, ladies and gentlemen, and then they will do this kind of cycle again and again. This is the kind of things that we regret when we're just letting them being in rehabilitation, ladies and gentlemen. And exactly, even if you're telling us that government does not have the money and the initiation to trying to take care of these people in rehabilitation, it is not true, because we as the government will willing to focus in our government budget there for the retribution. Yes.
Are you still using rehabilitation in your site?
Sorry, what?
Are you still using rehabilitation in your site?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, because the motion exclusively explaining to on higher crime rights, of course, no any higher crimes rights, because we will focusing more on retribution. All right, coming to my argument, because because a lot of people in the high crime rights always blame the failure of government that cannot provide them with food, that cannot provide them with a good environment. Exactly why, when you're trying to do this kind of retribution, as the government, they will do their job better, ladies and gentlemen, because they will try to preventing this crime by excluding these people from the society and then putting them in the same place. When we're trying to training them, when we're trying to make them repent of their mistakes, ladies and gentlemen, because basically retribution system will exclude these criminals and then putting in the same place, because the goal itself as a form of penitentiary, as it is the name, penitentiary system or prison system. So for the criminals to repent, and then and for us, it is justified to taking several of their derogable rights, because it is derogable rights and it is not going to be that much affecting their life, as long as it is not going to like harm them, because it is okay just trying to taking them in the same place. However, even if the we think that comparing to the opposition and our side, we believe that we should win. Because why? Because even if the opening will arguing to you that the retribution system is inhumane compared to rehabilitation, it is not true. Because in our side, we can improving the retribution system to respect more of human rights aspect. There's a lot of international convention that has been made as the guidance for the country, like a convention against torture, and also for the people itself. People in the society will taking more respect. Taking a more serious aspect towards the society, so that the higher crime rate, the crime rates will get lower, so that there's not much crimes as it was before, which is why we are proud to propose.
Thank you, DPM. To close the opening debate, I call upon the deputy leader of opposition.
So, am I audible?
Yeah.
Oh, take away. Sign pause. Okay, I'm ready. 3, 2, 1. I think this debate is not clear, right? I think that before I go to give my arguments, I would like to contextualize this debate first. But what is that? First, what is the goal of law enforcement? I think there is 3 reasons what is the law enforcement goal is. First, to give a justice to every people, regardless of your capital, regardless of your skin, or etc. And second is for the societal acceptance. And third is the protection for the people. I think this is exactly the goal of the law enforcement, right? But what is the rehabilitation that we would like to talk in this debate? The rehabilitation we would like to talk is like we are going not to eventually judge the people based on their subjectivity of people, but we rather reforming their personality or the reason why they are using those kind of criminal. So we think that in a moment when you had already been good, you already been well disciplined under your rehabilitation, you can just simply be out for the jail, right? I think exactly. But how the event? We would like to using some kind of psychiater. We would like to give psychologist, etc., as our way to eventually reach those kind of things, so that if the moment when they already been good, they could eventually be left out in the rehabilitation. But what is the distribution that we believe in this debate? I think the distribution that they give is not really clear, right? I think the distribution that they give in this debate, I think the distribution should be like a long sentence of the long sentence and also the death penalty, etc. I think this is exactly the kind of redistribution that happened under government case, right? I think this is exactly a thing that we would like to talk. But what this debate should be talking in the status quo? I think this debate should talking in the developing country, right? Why? Because those countries have a criminal higher rate, right? As the reason of those kind of undeveloped area. Because when it is not justice for you to talking in the progressive country. Why so? Because in those kind of country, they simply can tackle down all of the criminal rates, so there will be no any high criminal rate, etc. Right? I think both sides agree with this kind of thing. But I think that the high crime rates are not more likely happen in some places. I think the high crime rates that happen at our size is more likely to happen in some places with so many of minority people, right? Such in America, such as there is a black people, there is a people who is living in a very poverty, etc. But what is, I think that also under ours, but before that, I would like to reframe this debate, right? I think the second, the law enforcement is subjective. You are able to still get monopolization by the externalities that happen. There is a lawyer, there is the judges that corrupt, there is a thing that should be considered for you to eventually getting those kind of redistribution, right? And third, I think that not every criminal hire it. It means that those kind of particular actor is always the one who do the criminal. There is also a persecution that happened for the people who having a really capitalized, etc. Right? I think this is exactly a thing that we would like that. But I would like to just give some kind of rebuttal to the government side. I think all of the government of the side is talking about deterrence effect, right? I think that the deterrence effect will still happen under our side of the house. But what is exactly the deterrence effect is happening? I think that the reason why the people criminal actor is scared of is not the strict full of law enforcement, but they simply be scared to get caught. Why those kind of things happen? Because they don't want this, all of their criminal activities such as drug dealer or etc. being stopped by the police, because it means that their capital had already been removed, right, by the central. I think this is actually a thing that they scared of, right? I think that even if you like giving a very strict rule, I think this is not going to be effective. But even if those kind of things, we would like to compare those kind of things. There is two reasons. First, they are still able to get back again when you are using redistribution, right? I think this is very important. In the moment when you are eventually having some kind of the data that use it's like a long sentence, etc., because you simply not fixing the personality, but you're only fixing those kind of things for the sake of the societal acceptance. That I think this is exactly they are still the criminal actor are still being able to get back again to the criminal. Right? A second, I think that there is still a drug dealer, right? That they are still able to do those kind of criminal illegal activity in those kind of the distribution or even in the sentence, right? I think this is actually, I think that this is why I think that those kind of thing that not giving the deterrence effect at all, right, to the distribution. But what happened at our side is we simply fix those kind of things to be well disciplined, right? But even if like they are still using a criminal activities, but at least in the trade of when they are already been good enough in the personality, they are able to eventually not doing just like a drug trafficking or a terrorism or etc. But and second argument is about the economic motive that they are giving. I don't understand what is eventually the relationship between the economic motive and the deterrence effect, right? Or even the prioritization of redistribution, because you are still not able, even if you are using redistribution, you are still unable to eventually give those kind of people the capital. You are still unable for the government to give those kind of the economic people in the poverty those kind of the basic need, etc. Right? I think this is exactly not the talking that we should talk this debate, right? But what happened under our side? I think there is 2 points I would like to talk in this debate. First, about how it is just only giving a
people in a very vulnerable actor to be very attacked by this kind of thing? And second, why this cannot eventually solve the problem of psychological criminal crime such as pedophilia, the terrorism, or etc. under their shadows? But first, just talking about why it is going to give a very people in the vulnerable actor. I think there is two very vulnerable actor in this debate. First is the people who having in the poverty, and second is the people who having in the minority, the black people. Someone who is the black people, or even someone who is really in the minority. Why this happened? Because they are living in the system of the structurized of the law enforcement that is very evil, right? Like what already told by the government team, right? I think this only benefiting those kind of the people with the higher level of the capital. Why those kind of thing happen? Because they can simply afford the lawyer, right? They simply can hire those kind of things to make them to be eventually be free, right? By those kind of the imprisonment or etc. right? And second of all, I think they can also prosecute the people from the high criminal rate easily, because those kind of people had already been captured as a people whom really disadvantaged or really bad, right? I think this is actually just creating a narrative. If the black people is someone who is really evil, the black people is someone that is always doing a criminal actor, etc. I think this is just going to make a benefit for top 5% of people who are having a really privilege in terms of capital, right? I think this is exactly that happened under the Saudis. And also it is also cannot protect the black people. Let's see how in the status quo of America, right? There is a high criminal of the death penalty for the black people. Why this happening? Because there is because there is a restructurization of criminal enforcement law that the judges only allow to the penalty only for the people who voted for those kind of the criminal actor that is supporting. I think this is exactly why there is a lot of the black people getting prosecuted in the death penalty in America. But second, why it cannot solve the psychological criminal actor? The government told you that in their side of the house they would not use any kind of rehabilitation. I think it is bad. You simply cannot, because not every criminal actor is based on the people. It is based on their behavior, such as pedophilia, such as terrorism, or etc. Because it is happening because it is happen on their mindset, right? It is happening because their mindset had already been a very extremist ideology at center. And when you are using rehabilitation, you simply can fix those kind of people who having a pedophilia or etc. This is why we protect the people in the vulnerable actor, and we also don't serve the people in psychological criminal actor to be benefited. I'm so proud to propose.
Thank you, leader. Thank you, Deputy Leader of Op. To open the closing debate, I would like to call the member of government to start the speech.
All right. Give me a second. I'll turn on my timer. Am I audible? Hello? Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes, you are audible.
All right, thank you. Give me a second. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the opponent benches are sort of already grasped, right? Like the general purpose of the criminal sentencing is for us to seek justice, right? So this is exactly what the benches would like to provide, right? But as the closing government, what we will make sure is that we will make sure that those that have done wrong will actually understand the consequence and get the punishment according to the law itself, right? And let's really analyze the status quo, because we've only seen really general implications coming out of the opening benches, right? So in the status quo, in this high crime rates area, we see that it is very normalized to see some sort of violation of the law happening, right? It goes unnoticed, it goes unsolved, these sort of crimes, and it is seen as something normal because it is a dangerous area. So we believe that there's a validation coming to these foul acts, right? Because, for instance, people that are victimized, they are often feel that they are afraid to report to the police because, for instance, they will not get the justice that they believe they will have. And for instance, if the police will not care that much
at all, because there's this stigma that this place already high crime anyway. There will be no solution to that, and we cannot really do anything. So stealing, killing, rape, those kind of things will continue and continue to happen because there is no proper punishment, no proper investigation coming from the authorities, right? So we say here that the vulnerable actor is clearly the victims, right? Why? Because in the first place, government already failed to provide them the basic need on justice, right? Like all of these unsolved crimes and those kind of things. And they also failed to protect the citizen, right? Like this is a translation that we see within this area. But first, what actually makes us different with the OG, right? We say that OG is being very general. They only give to you about how punishment equals deterrence, basically, right? This is a very jumpy conclusion, and we cannot really credit this to a proper understanding. And second, they also fail to provide us a clear framework, right? Like what does it mean to actually prioritize retribution over rehabilitation, for instance? What does this actually mean? And we will be the bench that comes to you and provide all of this explanation. But first, let me rebut some of the points made by the opening opposition. So they brought to us about how they have the noble intention of trying to fix the mindset of these perpetrators, how they would like to make them contribute better to the society by providing psychiatrists, therapy, and those kind of things. But we say that their mechanism is also very faulty, right? We say that rehabilitation is the sort of method that will only be effective for several cases, several tiny cases in this sort of area. For instance, of course, sure, you can use rehabilitation in things like drug use and etc. But compared to the actual types of crimes that is happening within this area, right? That you don't only have crimes related to mental illness, for instance, you also have stealing, you also have sexual assault. We believe that this sort of crimes also begin with the ill intention of the perpetrators itself, right? And they did not acknowledge this at all. And we say that therapy will not solve these kind of problems, right? The ill intention of the people exists, and the victim will be left to suffer because there is no progress on solving the crime in itself. So this is why we say that the opposition and the opening is playing very unclear on their mechanism and arguments. So moving on to my points, our goal, as we stated before, that we would like to serve justice and decrease the crime rates within this area, right? How will we actually achieve this? We will build a better system by prioritizing the retribution, meaning that we will focus on building on giving the punishment and consequence to these perpetrators and create the better system itself. So we will first establish a good authority, right? We will make sure that people who report to the cops and to their district can actually investigate this sort of crimes more throughout and with the reports, and not letting any of these crimes left unsolved and escape, right? So if there is a crime, we will try our best to actually put them into trial and punish the people accordingly to the law that we have. So we will actually keep on doing this until we have the understanding that we have a justice system that is really responsive to the people, right? So people will not feel that people will not feel that they can do crime and get away with it, and people will feel that they feel safe because if someone actually done wrong to you, justice will be served, and those who done wrong to you will be getting the consequence that they deserve. So in conclusion, is what comes out of prioritizing the retribution itself is already a good narrative within the society, right? The authority is responsive, and it will cater to the need that is desperately needed in these high crime areas. So why are we the only one that can achieve this, right? Because first, we already give you the preventive method. So an acknowledgement of the law, we say as something that is really important, right? This is the only thing that will lead to the progress in the society that opening benches is desperately trying to grasp for. But for instance, like the opposition, they still cannot justify on the suffering of these victims, right? They give up a notion that how they would like to fix the perpetrators because they are poor, because they have all this poor background, but the system is being unfair to the victims, right? That is what the opposition is trying to propose to you. While with us, we are prioritizing retribution and giving a proper consequence to these sort of people. So the system will be really strict in upholding justice and reducing these sort of crimes, for instance, because they will finally be properly investigated and not be abandoned. And on to the next point is how we actually give more benefit and changes overall in the society, right? Like we've already explained to you in comparison, like on the deterrence effect on the rehabilitation and retribution, for instance. If you prioritize on rehabilitation, you only spend all of this capital on psychiatrist therapy, and that will only help on several cases, right? But with the prioritization of the retribution system, we are doing the basic in which that we make sure that the people understand the law and make sure that those that do wrong will be punished, right? So people will understand, for instance, if they go to prison, if they commit crime and go to prison and get fined, they will be put in a worse condition, right? They will understand that there's these consequences, like they will have criminal record, for instance, and that will make it hard for them to get a new job, and it will make it hard for their family to provide for their family, right? And we believe that this is the understanding that will make the perpetrator to be more reluctant to actually commit this crime just because they live in those high crime areas where it's really normal, right? And that is what we would like to change. So, and second, how did we come to the responsive system itself? So we moved from the acknowledgement of the system to keep on doing these fair trials and actually give the punishment like fine and prison to these sort of people, right? So we say that the society will have more trust in us as those that uphold justice, rather than the opposition that is trying to spend more on rehabilitation that have unclear results and affect at all to the society, right? So overall, we've already proven to you why, for instance, our case is more important, because we give you the step-by-step analysis and the framework that is more clear than the opening government and the open measures, right? By that, we are proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, member of GAF. To open the case for closing up, I would like to call member of opposition. Here.
Hello, am I audible? Is my mic kind of jittery? Okay. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, the one who can win this debate is the one who can ensure you and prove to you that the justification to either put the criminals in harsh punishment or in prison or rehabilitation, and second is to prove that after these inmates are released, they would no longer do these crimes, and make sure that it has a betterment to that high crime rate area. Now, the problem with this debate is the lack of characterization of the world and even a mischaracterization of things. So it's harder to picture what they want or know what their clear goal is. This has been tried. The closing government has tried to fix this. However, I feel that it is still not enough. Now, the thing is, the current status quo which all of the members have failed to characterize is how these high crime rate areas are, right? So what kind of areas are we talking about? We're talking about areas that have very bad economy, which means they're poor, which means that they would also are also lacking in a lot of other resources. For example, education, for example, healthcare, and all of these things, which like for example, the slum areas in India where everything is just really bad and people are just, all of them are really suffering. Now, this is basically what's happening in the status quo, right? So what do we want? We want, as the closing opposition, we want to prioritize rehab programs. Now, the rehab programs, the idea of these programs is to ensure that these crimes, these criminals have a better chance to be able to be integrated back to society, and even ensure that these people will no longer do their crime, and even to a point where they would contribute to this society itself. We want betterment for these high crime areas, and we do agree that in these types of areas there are not the types of crimes that's happening is not only doing drugs, but we're also seeing a lot of pickpocketing, robbery, and even murder. Now, what kind of mechanism as the opposition, closing opposition proposed? So we would like for these inmates, the ones who are in jail, to have what they currently have. It's just that we are going to prioritize it more in so much that it's basically the main thing of what they're going to get. So what do they going to get? They're going to have like mini workshops. They're going to we're going to train them on how to basically integrate them, on how to act like an innocent civilian, and like how to make sure that they are
they are going to be able to be independent in the first place. Now, what's the difference between this mechanism and the opening mechanism? It's because the opening said that they would like to decrease the number of sentence for basically generally, right? But we feel that that's not the case, because even if there's something pushing them to do these crimes, we're going to still punish them according to the law that's already been established. Now, however, we're basically going to tailor them based on their crime, and also we're going to consider the progress of the inmates in the prison itself. If they're actually doing better and showing progress, we would give little amnesties to their crimes, and maybe they could actually be released. They could be released earlier. This would also give an incentive for them to be better, right? Now, all of my rebuttals will be integrated in my argument. So on to my first argument, which is why it's principally wrong to stigmatize these criminals as inherently bad. Now, like how I've characterized the areas here is that they have poor economy, and they have low education, they have low healthcare system. So what's basically happening, especially the major issue here is the economic factors that's making the other factors is really bad, is that the wrong people, the criminals in this way, is basically also the somewhat victim of the environment that they're living in, right? They're doing these crimes because there is a motive that the opening government mischaracterized as being greed. And we say the true factor of why they're doing these crimes is because they are pushed to a point where they cannot do anything else, because it's simply the failure of the system to cater to their needs. So it's wrong for the opening government to characterize the world as that, because that's not what's happening. Like in India, we know people in India are poor. They're not simply doing it for greed, right? So they have this incentive, which is the pressure from the environment, right? So what we're going to do basically is we're going to solve the root cause of the problem, which is the things that are pressuring them in the first place. They are not only pressured by economy, but because of the poor living condition that they're in, it's also going to pressurize them. Obviously, a bad living condition won't make someone think clearly or sanely. So what we're going to do is to make sure that they have a right mind in the first place. So in our mechanism, we're going to put in, like I said, workshops, but also we're also going to hire a lot of psychologists. We're also going to hire a religious representative to make sure that these people are going to be catered to in the prison. And it's going to actually, we're also going to see them change, because that's the thing. That's the point of these religious leaders and also these psychiatrists. It's wrong for the any benches to, or for any teams to assume that these people won't change, because they will. Because like I've said, the true culprit of what they're doing wrong is the situation they're in. These religious leaders and these psychiatrists has a way of their own to make sure that these people know that they are wrong, and the incentive of being able to be granted amnesty and the hope of being able to be integrated back to society is going to help them change, right? So it is also wrong for the government bench who says that these will what the government also didn't really characterize to us is how the rehabilitation in their side is going to change the mind of these victims if they're so wrong and so inherently just really, really bad, and there's nothing pushing them except that they are wrong in the first place. So with that, I have proven to you why these people are why we should cater to these people, and why our mechanism is going to fulfill the things that any other team is not going to fulfill. That is all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, member of UP. To close the government case, I would like to call the government whip. Here.
Hello.
Okay.
Okay, I will start my speech in 1, 2, 3. I think this debate talks about which side of the house can give better future for these areas so that we can decrease the high crime rates. If the opposition side of the house is trying to say to you how we should pity this kind of people because they are living in poor conditions and that's the government's fault in the first place, we think that they are also not making the things better. The crimes will always be there, and I will integrate it with my classes later on how this will is a never-ending cycle that we will never fix in their side of the house. But first of all, let's go to my rebuttal side. First is about the OO. They stated to us about social acceptance, how the law enforcement are always there only for the sake of the social acceptance itself, not for the justice towards these victims itself, right? No, we think that we are doing it for the victims itself, right? We are going to seek justice for these victims because they are the one who are disadvantaged by their environment itself. They are the one who live in these poor conditions and just trying to strike, but they are being disadvantaged from their neighbor who have murder tendencies, for example. These kind of people are the one that we want to protect more because these kind of people are more vulnerable, right? We are not going to do this only for social acceptance. We are also doing it for the justice that is currently not present in this kind of areas just because it is normal for them to do crimes for their own benefits, right? We think that even though the opposition side of the house stated to us how if there are no one that if we give retribution towards these kind of people, then no one is going to give back to society. We think that the moment they are going to be rehabbed, even though it is successful at the end of the day, they are going to steal back because the tendencies is there, because their environment are telling them to do so, because there is already a notion inside this kind of environment that it is okay for you to steal, for example. Even though you are already a good person because of this rehabilitation, at the end of the day, you are still going to steal back because the rehabilitation itself is not fixing your poor condition. You will still live in this kind of condition itself and you will still back at the end of the day. We think that the OO has a lot of flaw because they never tell us how this rehabilitation can even they never tell us how this rehabilitation can make criminals they can make them have no more tendencies to actually do crimes in the future, and therefore the case cannot stand. But the CO is also repetitive, but even so they come up with their biggest identity is about how these criminals are basically the victim of their environment. But I will explain to you how we are also we have to even though we are the one, the government is the one who failed to protect them, we still have to protect the victims of the rather than the criminals itself. We are not doing it. We think that we may not make it better for the criminals itself, but it is okay because we are trying to compensate for the victims. Why? Because government in the first place failed to give better environment for these people, right? But victims are people who are still following the law despite our failure itself. The only way for us to contribute back towards these people is by giving them the justice that they need and the security that we will make sure that you gain what you have lost from these criminals itself. The opposition side of the house tries to protect people who have violated the law itself as trying to harm others, right? We don't think that we want to validate what the actions that they have made, and we will try to give the retribution towards this kind of people so that they can repent for their sins and they can actually contribute towards people that they have harmed in the first place for their personal gain, right? We think that the CO and O itself has never proven to us how this can actually make a better future in the better future, and how they can actually compensate these kind of victims if they are going to prioritize the criminals inside this inside the criminal sentencing, right? We don't think that their case is important. But let's see the class. The main question inside this debate is about no thank you. It's about who can give better deterrent effect. Right? We think that it is the deterrent effect is the only way how we can actually decrease the criminal rates, which is our goal, which is the main goal itself. We think that in the opposition side of the house, they stated that the deterrent effect won't happen because they are not afraid of law, but exposure of their criminal records instead. Basically, they are going to do it again and again unless you fix mindset about the through the rehabilitation itself. That is their argument. But we say that this won't give a better deterrence itself because they are first backlashing with themselves, right? They stated that people who are afraid of criminal records are people who have intention of criminals, but the OO characterized to you about people who are forced to do this because of their poor conditions. These are two different characteristics that is inconsistent coming from them. But even so, we think that the deterrence still won't happen on their side because they let the people do crimes and forgive them by giving this rehabilitation. They are pushing the notion that having a poor condition can justify their criminal actions, right? This is not the mindset that we want because they will never have the will to repent for their sins. This is why the rehabilitation won't work itself because they are forgiving themselves for all the actions that they make. They don't know that stealing is bad. They know that it is okay to steal. This is a never-ending cycle that will never work because this won't solve the problem. Because let's say they are rehabilitated and the rehabilitation makes them better people, but the moment they go back towards the society, the environment will still trigger this kind of tendencies back, right? Which is why rehabilitation is pointless because at the end of the day, it is still the only way for them because we are not fixing their condition. And second, they are still going to be a threat towards the innocent civilians that is currently living in this place, right? Because when the moment you choose rehabilitation over this retribution, you are also going to give them back towards the society, right? But retribution itself, the moment you provide the victims justice and security towards the retribution itself, you are creating a notion that doing these things are bad. Crimes are something that is punishable by law, and therefore it is something bad. How can they actually get the notion that this is something bad, right? Because retribution itself are done by fine or, for example, prisoning time. We think that these kind of things have make the victims itself repent for themselves, and they are also aside from that, the moment they are going back to the society, they are not socially accepted because of the stigma that they are already criminals, right? This kind of stigma itself makes it difficult for them to go back to the society, which is why we think that it is at the end of the day, we think that this is a preventive method, right? Because the moment you prioritize retribution, you are going to socialize towards towards your citizens that this retribution is something that we will do now. We think that the moment people actually get this kind of notion, people will think twice about doing a crime because this kind of actions can actually harm their current conditions. Because, for example, if you go to the prison time or have someone to or have debts to pay, you will think twice because your current condition is already so poor, and if it is added, it will make a worse future for you. We think that this kind of thinking twice itself can actually fix the mindset of this kind of people because they are afraid to do the crimes in the future, right? We think that even this can be, we think that by educating these people with retribution, how can actually create a better environment within this area, because it can actually give them the mindset that a crime is worse, and therefore in the future they will repeat the same thing again. Thank you.
Thank you, Government Whip. To close the debate, I would like to call the opposition whip. Here you go.
All right. Can you guys hear my voice clearly? Starting in 3, 2, 1. I think that it's important to first characterize what kind of crimes, because there has been differences in each team on what kind of crimes that is the majority that is going to get rehabilitation or either retribution. Now, on our side, we already clarified that I think that the most crime is already drugs, right? And in slum areas, which is in areas that is with high crime rates, that it's probably slum areas. That besides the economic factor of it, that it's also because that people is just living in shitty condition and they try to get comfort, and that's why that you got things such as drugs cartel there, you get gang, and I think that that's why that the drug is majority, and other crimes such as stealing or pickpocketing, it comes from economic factors. And also we admit that there are crimes like sexual assault, there are crimes like murder, and there are crimes that happens in the heat of the moment because of the emotion that they are feeling. I think that um, that's the characterization of crime, and we think that it's important to notice that just because we are going to focus on the rehabilitation doesn't mean that we will abandon retribution completely. We just think that most of the root cause of the crimes right now in those areas with high crimes is not because it's not mainly from individual inherently evil, but rather that it's because of situational factors. We think that's the majority of crimes, and of course crimes with that comes from for example that sexual assault. Of course that there needs to be some kind of retribution too, right? But we are also going to add rehabilitation in the process of it. Like we are going to get them psychiatrists, and they say that it's expensive, but I'm going to say to you on why that this can give tangible benefits, which is how that when these criminals go out, they are not going to do the same thing again. Which is I think that when you do crime, you need to process it in the right way, right? You need to realize that you have done something bad, and you need to realize that you need to change. I think that what the government team is doing is that the ghosting government, for example, they say that their justification is that it's okay to put them in the worst condition, to punish them harshly, so that once they get out, they cannot get a new job. I think that what's problematic about this is that they condemn these criminals as evil, right? They characterized it like they are so bad that they have to be put in this awful place, that they are just really bad people. I mean, you know that prison gives standard of living that is really bad, and like there is low sanitation, there is a low quality of food and water, and that's basically not okay. I think that just because someone did crime, they don't deserve to live in a very small place. Can you still hear my voice? Right, in a very poor condition. I think that you also see that prison guards that use violence to treat these criminals. That's because the idea that these are all bad people, which we already proved to you that they aren't, because some of it comes from the government, which is our second layer of justification, in which we cannot punish these people completely without giving them rehabilitation, because some of it comes from the government. For example, when they have to do crimes because of economic factor, that's because the government inability to provide for them, right? And that's why that we don't think that that it is justified for you to condemn them. And also that I think when they say that we are that it's important for the justice for the victim, I think that our response is that we are not going to abandon retribution, because we are still going to keep it in some of the cases in which, for example, there is crime like sexual assault. But what about cases like drugs or people with mental illness? I think that it's better that they get rehabilitation instead. And not to mention in their mechanism, when you say that you are going to put most of them in jail, that means that you have to guarantee that your prison has the capacity to contain all the inmates. Because right now in all of the world, you see that there is overcrowded, that they are overcrowded in prison, even in Indonesia, right? Like in such a small space, there is multiple of people. And also they brought the idea of deterrence. They said that their practicality, that it's going to create, that it's going to prevent people from doing crimes. However, we already say to you on how that the fault is that these situational factors that you need to address at first, right? So when they are forced to steal to eat, I don't think that even the risk of getting in prison will stop them from stealing if you don't give them the economic independence of it. And also their idea of deterrence, that once they get out they won't do the same crime, we think that's not right, because we probably have zero tolerance policy, right? That minor crimes is going to get severe sentences. And right now in status quo, majority of prisoner is Black and Hispanic. You see that they are the minorities, and when you review their case, for example, you see that they are innocent. And we see that the criminal justice system still has a lot to be changed, that it's still inherently racist. And when you send someone to prison, you take away 20 to 25 years of their life, right? And not to mention if they are ethnic minorities, they when you do that, they will wake up to a new world altogether, right? Once they get out of prison, there is a lot of things already happening. There is new technology, new competition, new education. You talk away years of their lives, and this is why a lot of criminals become recidivists, that they keep on committing the same crime over and over again, because once they get out of prison, there is just no way for them to get economic independence for themselves, because you took away years of their life and you took away their chance to make their lives better. And also that the opening government brought out the idea that the government will be incentivized to change how they manage society, but I think that there is lack of process analysis coming from the opening government. I mean, why would the government care? All they see is that they already did their responsibility by putting all these criminals in prison. What the government is going to think is that, well, these people is just bad, and I don't have to change anything, and that's why that I think change won't happen on their side of the house. And also that I think we're better than the opening opposition, because we brought new layers on why that because the opening opposition, they don't tell us about the justification and stigma that these people is going to get, right? I mean, once you get out of prison, because there is just this stigma that you are criminals and this is society, and that's why that they won't be able to integrate back. And also that the opening opposition rebuttal regarding government responsibility or prison capacity is missing, in which that I think that it's really, really important, because this shows to you on how and why that retribution won't work, because that the prison capacity and condition is just not good enough. And once you put these criminals in there, they are not going to be able to reflect their mistakes. They will be angry. They are put in such a bad condition that they will be angry at everything. And once they get out, because you took away their chance to make their life better, what will happen is they will just do the same thing over and over again. And that's why that we think that we should win this debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Opposition Whip. That concludes the Novice Grand Finals. Give a round of applause, although this is online, to all the speakers. Yay! You can wait for the results at the closing